I have been waiting years, a decade, for the return of the lipstick-faced demon so he could finally be recognized as the iconic horror villain that he is, the silly little guy behind the most iconic jump scare of all time, my brother, my captain, my king, my years of loyalty, and he's only in the red door for like 2 minutes. Oh my, there is a lot to discuss with this movie, guys, so let's not waste time. This is the 5th Insidious movie and Patrick Wilson's directorial debut. It's a direct sequel to Chapter 2 because Chapter 3 and The Last Key are obviously prequels. It starts off reminding you that at the end of 2, 10 years ago, Josh and Dalton had their memories suppressed, so they don't remember the events of the first 2 films and don't even know that they have the ability to astral project anymore. But things have felt off since then. Their relationship is shaky. Dalton is off to college now. He wants to be an artist. Josh and Renee are divorced. That was a bit of a jump scare. And as signs start to appear that the curse is coming back, they have to address their family's dark history and venture into the further once more. Obligatory preambles. You can obviously get away with watching this without having seen Chapter 3 and The Last Key since they're prequels, and I would recommend 1 and 2 because they're awesome. I think 2 personally is criminally underrated, but I was honestly kind of surprised with how accessible this is for people who would want to go in blind. I think you could still have some horror fun if you don't want to watch any of the first films. And I just love the Insidious franchise. We're doing James Wan month on the podcast right now, and we talked about Insidious, so I'll link that below, but all of my critiques are coming from a place of love for Insidious and for horror. And though I think a lot of people will have fun with this movie, and we'll talk about some of the things that I had fun with, I think this movie is a huge victim of great ideas with weak execution, and it made it almost more disappointing as an Insidious movie that you could see the potential that it had and just didn't live up to in a lot of ways. And are any of the Insidious movies masterpieces? No, but there's a reason that they have such a cult following, and this one feels noticeably more conventional in certain ways, and I had a light bulb moment when I realized that this is the first Insidious movie that was not written or directed by James Wan or Leigh Whannell. James Wan produced and Leigh Whannell conceived of the story, but it was written only by Scott Teems, who we most recently saw as the sole writer for Firestarter, maybe one of the worst movies I've seen in the last few years. And it all makes sense now. You can see the bones of a good story and a good Insidious story. The father-son dynamic, Dalton coming of age while dealing with this generational trauma, his art acting as a gateway to his subconscious and the further. So cool. And coupled with Patrick Wilson's direction, which we'll talk about, it definitely comes together in a few moments, but it's missing so much of the charming and calculated melodrama that Wan and Whannell brought to the first 2 films and the whole franchise. Instead, the dialogue is so stilted and at times downright abysmal and cringy. Oh my god, like nails on a chalkboard. Props to Sinclair Daniel for being very charming despite them giving her some of the worst lines. And the narrative just feels uneven. It's kind of trying to balance Patrick Wilson coming to this realization about why he's been pretty much an absent father for a long time, and Dalton being in college. And I think there's just too much time spent on the college aspect of it and them being apart, and the ending where the most emotionally impactful moments are supposed to happen, it just feels distant and rushed. I will say that I think the strongest part of the narrative is Dalton's realization of what his dad did in the second film and reckoning with that, but it's another really bright idea that just doesn't end up fully landing. It does have, you know, all the greatest hits. Elise, Specs, and Tucker are worked in. We see Henry, and none of those characters have to be in it for more than like a cameo. I wasn't really looking for extreme fan service, but I do have a genuine problem with how much the lipstick-faced demon was not in this movie. It is not a victimless crime. I think it is a true narrative issue because the lipstick demon is Dalton's trauma demon. They all have one, and if it's supposed to be representative of his emotional arc, why not have him start to haunt his dreams in the beginning? And you can see in the trailer that he's covered in this like charcoal kind of singed stuff. I guess because he's been like dormant, so why not have him debut the bright red face again in the climax? He's at his most powerful, and then Dalton and Josh have to team up and defeat him together. And they do go for that, credit where it's due, but he legitimately gets like 1 minute of screen time, and they're out of his clutches just as quickly as they got there. They embarrassed him. He's not scary. He might as well have been any other demon, honestly. Justice for Lipstick Demon. Rose Byrne also isn't really a main player in this, which sucks, but I did like her part in the whole thing. So I think the saving grace is Patrick Wilson's direction, particularly with the scares. He's talented. This was an awesome directorial debut, and I think it was so great for him to take the mantle of this franchise and have Juan and Winell kind of there to guide him. I even felt a bit of like The Sixth Sense and The Exorcist at times, and he's obviously taking a huge hint from James Wan for how to execute these jump scares. He kind of gives himself the best ones. The MRI scene will be a fan favorite, which was Leigh Whannell's idea, apparently. I thought the suspense was built very well, but the scare itself in that scene didn't get me that much because it was given away in the trailer. I'm like so sick of saying that. The one that did get me was one that I guess I completely forgot was in the trailer that has to do with a window, because I like shrieked. I was not ready for it at all. There's one vomit scene that was pretty good. Vomit scenes are so hot right now, so be ready for that if you're not great with it. And there are a couple good fake outs, like one where Patrick Wilson is sitting in his car and you can see this out of focus figure behind him. It really builds that tension very well. I'd say probably better than the scares themselves. But there are a couple of good ones. Nothing as good as the ones that Juan did in the original. How could you match up to that? And I will say my issue is that it feels like it's teasing that the curse is coming back, so it doesn't go full throttle scare, like it's leading up to this big epic reckoning, and then it never really delivers that. Again, the ending is rushed. It doesn't really feel like the stakes are high. It all ties back to the lipstick demon. In the original, he was crawling on walls. They made him so scary. God damn it. Things I didn't mention, Ty Simpkins is pretty good. I thought that he made his character very believable. There's also a bit of a post-credit scene and Patrick Wilson sings over the credits, which is very cool. But overall, The Red Door isn't abysmal and it's not the worst in the franchise, but the select few times that I was like, hell yeah, weren't nearly enough to counteract the very drab and stilted narrative of this one. So I'm going to give Insidious The Red Door 2.5 out of 5 stars. I will always love this franchise, but it kind of feels like Juan and Winell are on to bigger things, thinking about the future, and this one kind of got coughed out to put a bow on things. There is that Thread spinoff though that Juan confirmed that apparently doesn't have anything to do with the characters we've seen so far in this universe, so I'm very curious about that. But again, Patrick Wilson has the juice. It's not at full power yet, but I'm very excited to see what he does next in terms of acting and directing. But let me know your thoughts on Insidious The Red Door, guys, and the Insidious franchise as a whole. I'm seeing Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning tomorrow, and I can't wait to talk to you guys about it, so don't forget to like and subscribe and keep an eye out for more videos soon. Thanks for watching.